Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit. Well, hope you're all warm as well. You'll be pleased to know that the snow in Surrey yesterday turned out to be very English in nature. I think I counted about 4 flakes. At least one of those might have been dandruff, actually. However, there is no question that it's turned very chilly indeed out there. So, as we promised yesterday, here's a very quick look for you at what the weather is doing in the UK at the moment. As you can see, not particularly high temperatures. Wouldn't want to be in Aberdeen or Birmingham today, where it is -1. Belfast, 3 degrees. It's almost balmy weather there, and Newcastle's got the same. But yeah, chilly day out there. So please, people everywhere, wherever you are, wrap up, stay warm. Don't venture out unless you absolutely have to, because it's bloody horrible out there. And if you are watching from outside of the UK, please let us know what the weather is doing where you are. I'm going to say some good mornings. I'm going to say good morning to our friend Ken Hatcher, who wasn't here yesterday. Hope all went well yesterday, Ken. But thank you for joining us, and a happy new year to you as well. A safe, happy, prosperous, and all the other things new year to you, Ken. Jim Turner is here as well. Good morning to you, Jim. There is Ken Hatcher confirming the fact that it is very cold down in Welsh Wales. Footy is here as well. Morning to you, Graham. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Dan Cullen is here. Gary Muirhead is here. And I can see from my screen that there are lots of people watching over on Instagram. So if you are watching on Instagram, good morning to you. This is only the second time we've broadcast live to Instagram. I'm really going to struggle to keep up with comments over on Instagram. But if you would like to make a point, please let us know over on Facebook or YouTube. I will keep an eye on the chat over on Instagram, but it's going to be really, really hard for me to do so. So yes, please bear that in mind. Yes, one final thing before we go any further. If you've got the time and the inclination at the end of the show, could you please stick around? Because I've received details this morning of a new survey that shows the negative impact that late payments are having on the UK construction and therefore the demolition industry. We will get to it at the end of the show, but I'd really like to get your thoughts because it does make for some very, very stark reading indeed. Now, without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro. I'm also going to post the question of the day, and I'm going to get this show on the road. Before I do that, I'm going to say very quickly, good morning to Chris Ford. And Dan Cullen, who is quite clearly a psychopath, love it. This is fantastic weather. It is fantastic weather if you happen to be a polar bear or Dan Cullen, one of those two. Right, so should we get this thing underway? I think we probably should. Here goes the intro. It is Tuesday, the 9th of January. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, the all-new hydraulic hammer from Montabert. Is it hot or is it not? Find out in just a few moments. We're in Northern Ireland checking out some tower block demolition. We're off to the US to find out why a demolition contractor has placed its faith in all things Hyundai. And we're face to face with a Lone Ranger, which will make more sense when we get to it. A Lone Ranger from Sandvik. Plus, we are charging ahead with a new tractor from the mighty Kubota. But first, we're going to peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this very day in history. Just as soon as I can find the right button to press, it's this one. On this day in 1799, British Prime Minister William Pitt the Younger introduced income tax, and he introduced it purely to finance the war against Napoleon. Well, we won 300 years ago, and we're still paying. Go figure. In 1806, Horatio Nelson, Admiral Nelson, received a state funeral in London and was interred at St Paul's Cathedral. In 1947, Betty Short, the victim of the Black Dahlia murder, was last seen alive. In 1951, the movie Life After Tomorrow was released. I have no recollection of the movie whatsoever, but I can tell you it was the first film to receive an X certification. In 1959, the TV show Rawhide premiered on US television. It starred a little-known actor who went by the name of Clint Eastwood. In 2002, Michael Jackson was named Artist of the Century, and on this day in 2007, a bloke called Steve Jobs announced the introduction of a new product. A new product was the iPhone. 2007, 16 years ago. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, I am going to quickly remind you of today's question of the day. Yes, our question of the day for today is this. Do you have a favourite conspiracy theory, myth, or legend? Now, personally, I don't believe any of them. I think that Elvis really is dead, very sad though it is. I think that the Loch Ness Monster is a hoax and that Bigfoot is a man in a fluffy suit. However, I love them all. I love the tale of the Mary Celeste, the ghost ship. I love the notion of UFOs and little green men coming to visit. And I do think that the assassination of JFK looks, shall we say, sketchy. But what about you? You don't necessarily have to believe it, but do you have a favourite myth or conspiracy theory? Let us know in the chat and we'll come back to that at the end of the show. Now, speaking of the show, let's begin, shall we? Okay, if you were here at the very tail end of 2023, you might recall me babbling on about a product of the year idea that I'd had. I can't say I've clarified it too much more in my head. Suffice to say that I'm going to be archiving all of the films about products that you all consider to be hot. And then we're going to feature them in a show, all of them, in a show at the end of the year. And we're going to, amongst us, well, amongst you, we're going to choose our product of the year. Clear as mud, right? Anyway, the first project up for your scrutiny and your decision over whether it's hot or not is a new hydraulic breaker from one of the true pioneers of the sector. That's Montabert. So watch this and let me know, please. Do you consider this new Montabert hydraulic breaker to be hot or not? Yeah, certainly gets my vote. I'm going with hot, but my vote doesn't actually count. So what do you think? Is that new Montabert breaker hot or not? The immediate reaction has been a bit of a mixed bag. Dan Cullen reckons hot. I'm in agreement with Dan. Footy says with the automatic greaser on it, very good. I'd like to say hot. Ken Hatcher, slightly less convinced, says medium. I give you two options, hot or not, and he goes straight down the middle. Chris Ford also. Good morning, Chris, by the way. Good morning. yes, he says hot as well. It's starting to look like the Montabert could well be hot. But keep the votes coming in. As I say, we're going to archive all of these hot or not. Anything that gets a hot vote between now and the end of the year when we do our hot or not show, well, we'll be counting those down. So let me know if you believe that to be hot or not. My mouse has just decided to start playing silly buggers. So let me get back to the show. Let me roll one of these before we move on.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yes, how's this for weird? If you were here yesterday, you might recall that our friend Dan Khan asked if I had any plans to visit an Irish demolition site at some point in the future, to which my answer was a categorical yes. Well, about an hour after yesterday's show took place, and yesterday after that conversation took place, a new video dropped into my inbox. And while it actually comes from Northern Ireland, I think you'll agree it's one hell of a coincidence. It's a bloody good film too. Cracking video, right? Particularly like the music. But my point still stands. If there is an Irish demolition company out there that would like to host an irascible old sod like me and a slightly more cheery son for a day, please get in touch. We will be sticking with the demolition theme right after this, but I do want to say a very, very quick good morning to Nigel Williams. Mr. Nigel Williams, should I say, who has just joined us and says Happy New Year. Morning, Nigel. Loving the podcast still. And if anybody hasn't heard Nigel's podcast, and I can't believe that would be the case, but please, would you go over to your preferred podcast provider and search for From the Seat of the Cab by Mr. Nigel Williams. I would recommend it enormously. Nigel's actually asked, how long was that tower block demo from start to finish? I don't know the answer to that. Several months, I would guess, but I don't actually know. And there's Gary Muirhead also saying good morning to our friend Nigel. Also, just want to say a very quick good morning to my mate Martin from the Norwegian Earth Mover over on Instagram, who I just saw flash through the chat as well. Instagram seems to be going well. Lots and lots of people having a look. They don't seem to be sticking around because they probably can't make out what the hell's going on, because this is only the second time we broadcast over there. But yes, welcome. If you are over on Instagram, you are very welcome indeed. And just to remind everybody, if you are watching live right now on Twitter, or X as it is now known, you can comment and we will be able to see your comments. So if you've got anything to say that you would like to add to the arguments and the discussions here, please feel free to do so. We'd love to hear from you. Now, let's have a little bit of this, shall we? We'll be pressing on in just a moment, but I want to say a very quick good morning to my mate Neil Rutter. Hey Mark, happy new year to you. Gotta love a good time lapse. You certainly have. And who produces a good time lapse? Neil Rutter. Gorilla Drones. If you're in the market for a drone film, he's your man. I'm only saying that quietly because my son sat next door with a drone that's ready to roll. But yeah, Neil Rutter does a very, very good job indeed. Ken Hatcher says, I had a notification from Instagram today. Never had that before, only from Facebook. Yes, there's a reason for that. During the Christmas break, or during the festive break, if you prefer, our software was updated, which allows us to broadcast now direct live to Instagram. I'm absolutely delighted that we can do that, because that's actually where that's where our biggest audience resides. 153,000 followers over there. Although there's unfortunately not all 153,000 are currently watching, because my screen would be lit up right about now if that was the case. But yes, we are now broadcasting live over on Instagram. Now, I do need to fire up another film. What are we going to say? Yes, people. I've already said we're going to be sticking with all things demolition. So strap in. We're about to board a flight to America to see why a US demolition company has put its faith in all things Hyundai.
Hi, I'm Brian Clark with United Demolition. We are a bridge demolition company located in Charleston, South Carolina, serving the Southeast and along the East Coast. We've been in business for 6 years, specialize in the heavy civil demolition industry. We've been using Hyundai equipment for the last 4 years. Switched over to Hyundai equipment for the price point, the durability, the strength, and then the great service of the branches locally. We got the 235 series because we like the turn radius. It also has the front push blade to help keep the debris off the excavator. Our operators really rely on the Hyundais. We do a lot of shutdowns at night, so a lot of the equipment needs to perform in a certain time frame. We need to execute, get in, get off the road before reopening it to traffic in the morning. So we really rely on the durability and the efficiency and the overall superiority of the product. The hydraulic flow has been a crucial part of using the Hyundai equipment. We rely on the hydraulic attachments to demolish the bridges, the concrete, break it down into manageable sections. So we need and rely on the machines to execute every day. We don't expect a lot of downtime, but when we do need something fixed, the local branches are everywhere we're working. The HiMate telematics has streamlined the maintenance process. It's helped the superintendents in the field know when the next services need to be done, if there's any error codes with the machines, or if the machine's idle and not working. So it's helped reduce our cost for idling machines on sites, and then plan ahead when the maintenance needs to be done. The dream for our company is to be one of the top demolition companies in the Southeast, specializing on bridge demolition. We like doing bridge demolition, and we'd like to do more of it. Hyundai equipment has been a part of achieving this goal by offering superior products at a good price point and having the local branches provide reliable service. That has been a great combination and why we've chosen the Hyundai equipment.
Building a comfortable tomorrow.
Looks a well-run demolition company, have to say. They certainly love their Hyundais. I'm pronouncing that correctly, I hope. Gary Muirhead says you're saying it wrong, Mark. Yes, Hyundai apparently is the way to say it. Dan Cullen says, informative video, but not a fan of Hyundai. Nigel Williams says, Hyundai are very much the middle-of-the-road brand. They've got a heck of a lot better and replaced cocoa powder with steel in their parts, it seems. Okay, thank you for that. Now, I want to throw back to Nigel Williams, who was asked a question. Speaking of drones, which we were when Neil Rutter arrived, has anyone caught yesterday's podcast about the drone flying auditors? I have not. But Nigel says, if so, what are your thoughts on the subject? Can I assume that we are, and this is just a wild guess, can I assume this is your podcast, Nigel, and that we now have auditors who are checking out sites and the operators working within them by drone? If that's the case, please, can you let me know? I will take the time to go and give your podcast a listen today. I'm still catching up on a few bits and pieces podcast-wise, but I will certainly go and give that a listen. If that is the case, Nigel, as I say, please let us know. And if anybody else has actually heard it, please let us have your thoughts. And just to remind everybody, Nigel Williams from the Seat of the Cab on all good podcast platforms and on a few crappy ones as well, much the same as mine is as well. Now, let's have a little bit of this, shall we?
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
I do want to say a very quick good morning. In actual fact, it's a double Mick good morning. Mick Saunders says, morning, Mark, and all happy new year to you. Well, happy new year to you as well, my friend. Setting aside our football rivalries, happy new year to you. And I'm also going to say another Mick good morning as well to our friend Mick Norton. Good morning, Mick. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Yep, just trying to read the chat. Okay, I'll come back to that in just a moment. Those of you that took the time to read it will know that my weekly column, which dropped yesterday, was about the need to look more widely to spot likely trends and potential innovations here in the demolition industry. The column is actually called Beyond the Echo Chamber, and you can read it using the link that I've just posted in the chat, actually, if you've missed it. In that article, I said that the demolition industry would do well to look at the developments in the mining sector, which is leading the way in certain key areas, such as autonomous machine operation. And just to show how advanced mining equipment really is, I'd like you to take a look at this.
Sandvik's Ranger is the most famous and advanced top hammer drill rig that has shown its performance on thousands of sites in the past 30 years. Its versatile features make it a perfect fit for different applications in civil contracting, quarrying and mining. With the Ranger DXI drill rig series, Sandvik has defined what intelligent and productive drilling means. Its reliable and versatile automation features provide the best performance and ease of use. And the comfortable iCab is famous for its exceptional practicality. And now, with the introduction of the new rock drills, rock tools and digital solutions, it is time to take productivity to an even higher level. A drilling plan is created in drill planning software. The data is stored in My Sandvik and transferred wirelessly to the machine. The imported drilling pattern is ready for use and the drill can be trammed into position. Everything is now ready for the first hole. Drilling is automated with iTalk control system. All drilling parameters are easily controlled from drilling recipes. Hole-to-hole navigation automatic takes care of choosing the next hole, and the machine then moves and aligns itself automatically. Adding rods is also automated with the one-hole automation option. After finishing the hole, the system can remove the rods with very high reliability, even in challenging rock conditions. The system collects all drilling data, and the operator can make notes with the Driller's Notes option. Automatic features help the operator in drilling more meters per engine hour, as well as in performing additional tasks or even having short breaks while automatic drilling is on. Sandvik's RD900 series rock drills for different hole sizes and job types cover practically all needs and improve your drilling performance. The new long piston RD930 rock drill is designed for efficient drilling of even larger hole sizes. The drilling system is optimized with reliable and durable Sandvik CT rock tools, ensuring the highest drilling speed and the best hole quality. High tramming power and low center of gravity provide excellent mobility. The rotating superstructure keeps counterweight always on the opposite side of the boom, and 290 degrees of rotation covers a total of 55 square meters of drilling area. Full radio remote control gives security for operating the machine in challenging conditions. Data management is another key to improving productivity. My Sandvik is the tool for managing and sharing all fleet data and service needs. The in-depth fleet data makes monitoring productivity, efficiency, and sustainability very easy. Ranger DXi is the most capable, the most powerful, and the most intelligent drilling machine ever, shaping the direction of the industry for the decades to come. Ranger DXi. It's all covered.
Yeah, a bit outside our usual remit, but apparently it's gone down extremely well. As Dan Callan saying, it's a great video, and he's also saying the machine is hot. Graham Footy Williams says it's hot. Ken Hatcher says it reminds him that Sandvik started out making hacksaw blades. They did, and I'm fairly sure I've mentioned this before, but apparently, and I'm reliably informed that Nokia, you know, the people that made the indestructible mobile phone, apparently they started out in the toilet paper business. I don't know if that's true or whether that's apocryphal, but apparently that is the case. And also enjoying that video is the Norwegian Earth Mover over on Instagram, who says, nice hammer drill. Sandvik is a good brand. I 100% endorse that. Thank you very much indeed for that. Now, I know we've had some more comments. I'm going to come back to the comments at the end of the show. We've got some clarification in from Nigel Williams about this idea of auditing via drone. There's a kind of a difference of opinion over there on that, so I'll come back to that in just a moment. Yes, let's crack on, shall we? I think we need one of these.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
Now, as a rule, we don't usually feature tractors here on this here show. They're a bit agricultural and are therefore outside our usual remit. However, today I'm going to make an exception. And I'm making an exception for two reasons. The first is because the tractor in question is made by Kubota. And the second is because of how the tractor is actually powered. Now, our friend Mr. Travolta has enjoyed a long festive break, but he joins us now to offer his opinion on that new Kubota tractor.
It's electrifying!
Thanks, John. Welcome back. We have missed you. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. As I said at the very top of the show, there is something I'd like to discuss immediately afterwards. And obviously, we've got some bits and pieces that have come up through the chat, including drone surveys, which I'd like to tap into as well. But if you can't stick around, I'm going to roll the intro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around, as I've just said, please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. But if you do have the time and the inclination, do please stick around, because I'll be back after this with the Craic. And just to remind everybody, if you are watching now on Instagram, where are we? We're at 33 minutes into the show. The Instagram feed will cut out at the 1 hour mark. So I'll try and get through most of the chat before then, if we possibly can. But as I say, stick around. There's a question I'd like to ask immediately after this. It's switching glasses time. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go right back to the very beginning of the chat, rattle through it quickly, and then we'll get on with the other question that I've got in mind. Just to remind everybody, I'm now operating a two-screen operation, so I'm looking at the comments over on this screen. My apologies if you think I'm ignoring you. I promise I'm not. I'm just focused over here. So Gary Muirhead was first off the mark this morning. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, gang. Good morning to you, Gary, up in Bonnie, Scotland. You've got some of the cloudier but warmer weather today, apparently, according to the Met Office. Dan Cullen, who has now left us, I think, but says good morning as well. Graham Footy Williams is here as well. Ken Hatcher is here down in Welsh Wales, where it is freezing cold. I'm sure it is. Jim Turner is here. Ken Hatcher said, Happy New Year. Minus 10.8 in Aviemore in Scotland. That's proper weather. And I bet he's still got his kilt on. Chris Ford is here as well. Good morning. Another fresh day. It most certainly is a fresh day. But there's Dan Cullen, who is basking in the chilly weather like the lunatic that he is. Now, our question of the day was this: do you have a favourite myth or conspiracy theory? As I said, I don't believe any of them, but I love them all. So if you've got any of those that you'd like to share, then please do so. Glenn Johnston's with us as well. Good morning to Glenn. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Glenn. Question of the day. Unfortunately, Donald Trump doesn't count as a myth or a conspiracy theory. He may have been behind a conspiracy theory or two, but I don't think he actually qualifies himself. Although, if somebody can explain the hair and the orange hue to his skin, maybe there's a whole conspiracy theory in that. Mark Whiting's here as well. Good morning to you, my friend. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Footy, giving us an update. Apparently the white stuff is heading down to Devon out of the sky. I'm apparently, well, as I say, I've looked at the weather forecast. I couldn't see any mention of snow anywhere in the UK, but you never know. And following up on our question of the day, Footy says, I believe there's aliens out there. We can't be the only one that's got people, possibly. I was expecting this one to come up. Conspiracy theory. Diana, Princess Diana. Was that an accident? Was that accident in the tunnel in Paris an accident, or was it not? Love to hear from you. I'm also going to say good morning to Connor, the digger driver, who I've just seen popped up over on Instagram. Morning, mate. I hope you're fit and well. Recently became a father as well. Congratulations, mate. Dan the man says that the Montabert breaker is hot. I think Footy agreed. Ken Hatcher is sat on the fence, which I'm sure is deeply uncomfortable, but he says it's a medium. Dan says a lot of operators don't know how to use breakers correctly. I think you're absolutely right. I think that is one of the key causes of tool breakages, is that idea of braking in the same position for a prolonged period of time, and it heats up and off she goes. Chris Ford is hot. I think we're going to agree that we're going to put forward the Montabert breaker into our roundup end show at the end of the year for all that is hot. So thank you very much indeed for that, gentlemen. Oh, you can only assume that Gary Muirhead is actually at work and nowhere near his wife, because he's Question of the day. Yes, the myth that all women are reasonable human beings. I'm sharing that partly because my wife isn't here either. But thank you. He also thinks that the Montabert breaker is hot. Nigel Williams has joined us. As I've already mentioned, but I'm going to mention it one more time. Nigel Williams hosts a superb podcast called From the Seat of the Cab. You can get it on all good podcast platforms. I've actually got a couple of, not long drives, but I've got a couple of drives coming up in the next couple of days. May tune in on at that point as well. Dan Cullen says those Northern Irish tower blocks, he used to pass them every day, but probably not any longer. And he also says, looks like some job. Nigel Williams says, Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to you as well, Nigel. Now, question of the day. Jim Turner says, myth or conspiracy theory? Religion. Jim, as always, you and I are in agreement. Although I believe in God or a higher being, power of collective thought, alien species or whatever, maybe we're not in full agreement because I don't believe in any of that. Ancient religious history is very sketchy. Personally, think most religions seem to be built on alien encounters through history, including Jesus, definitely alien, pyramids, ancient temples, and all the other things that obviously needed technology way in advance of what the builders had available at the time. So you are buying into the whole pyramids being built by aliens. My son loves that. Not Fred, who is skeptical about the world, but no, certainly my son Ollie is a firm believer that those pyramids were not built by humans. Not entirely sure I agree with that. Nigel asked, how long did it take to take down those tower blocks? I would guess several months. You're probably looking at about a floor per week, give or take. So, yeah, it would have taken a good couple of months, I would imagine. Dan Collins asked, and I did see that Nigel Williams did actually meet up with Ben Dan the other day. I saw a picture on LinkedIn, and Dan is asking, how did you get on with him? I'm guessing you got on very well. There is our friend from Gorilla Drones, Neil Rutter. Gotta love a good time lapse. Yes, you most certainly have. Ken Hatcher reiterated the fact that we are now broadcasting live over on Instagram. Lots and lots of people coming and going over on Instagram. I would imagine it's going to take a little while for us to bed in over on Instagram, and there's one hell of a delay as well. What I'm saying now here that you're hearing as I'm saying it now will pop up over on Instagram in about 20 seconds time, so it's an even bigger delay between here and there. Now Nigel says, speaking of drones, has anyone caught yesterday's podcast about the drone flying auditors? If so, what are your thoughts on said subject? We'll come to that in a minute because he does clarify a little bit more. Before we get to that, he is saying that Hyundai is the middle of the road brand. They got a heck of a lot better and replaced their cocoa powder with steel in their parts. Cocoa powder. Who knew? Informative video, but not a Hyundai fan. Okay, there is a link if you need it to my column from yesterday, Beyond the Echo Chamber. You can find that over on, just go to Demolition Insider. That's the easy answer, should you so desire. Let's have a look. Footy says, on your WhatsApp, I sent you a new Volvo Highridge. I'll go and take a look at that immediately after the show. We're back to conspiracy theories. Chris Ford says, who really shot President Kennedy? Starter for 10. Was Princess Diana death an accident? Bonus point. And did NASA put men on the moon? And the $50,000 question, do aliens exist? Very quickly. Don't know on the first one. I'm inclined towards accident for the second one. Yes, man has been on the moon. Do aliens exist? Almost certainly, but probably not here. And you know, I'm sure a lot of you, when you finish work and you've had your dinner, you switch on the evening news and look at what's going on in the world, in Gaza and in Ukraine. Think about it like this. As it stands at the moment, would you be inclined to book a holiday to Israel? You probably wouldn't, right? Because, you know, if you are an alien species and you can literally fly all around the galaxy, would you visit Earth? Would you pop to Earth for your next vacation? Don't think I would. Right, we are going to clarify now. Nigel Williams says, my pod, not seen any audits by jobless, useless wangers. But I've sent a video by a mate who works in a scrapyard who suffered the scourge of grievance-provoking mongs, and he asked my thought. let me just absolutely clarify it, Nigel. Are we talking about people flying drones? They're not actually auditors, but they are neighbours or neighbouring businesses flying drones overhead to try and catch people out. If that's the case, bang out of order, I would say. Jim Turner states categorically, Diana was killed as the people that run the country, not government, the faceless, unelected ones behind the scenes, didn't think the future king having an Arab half-brother would be acceptable. Oh, it's fighting talk here this morning. Mick Norton says, if a drone was used in construction to identify events that could lead to an unsafe situation, that can only be a good thing. I wouldn't argue with that one bit. But we have progressed, and I'm, as I say, I'm filling in. I can see what Nigel's going to say in a second, so I'm not exactly filling in. I'm actually pretty much on the mark. If you've got auditors, be they internal or external, going to a site and putting a drone up to see the health and safety situation on the site for legitimate reasons, not a problem at all. However, and I think this is the case, and we'll come to that in a couple of minutes' time, if it is a case where you've got people, literally next door neighbours, Karen next door, who's got a drone for Christmas, and she's putting it up in the air to try and catch out the demolition company or the construction company or the plant hirer working just up the road, not in agreement with that one bit. And let's be honest, we've seen it before. We've seen prosecutions taking place in the UK construction and demolition industry that have been prompted by iPhone and video photography and video footage shot by neighbours. Got a question mark about that. Mick Saunders says, sent you a video the other day. I've been visiting different places the last couple of weeks. Got to be honest, I'm beginning to think that all the safety talks given and all the training is a complete waste of time. Out of politeness, I don't take my phone on visits, but the things I've seen is beyond belief. I did see the video, Mick. My apologies for not responding. I was in festive mode, and the phone was. I saw the video, so it wasn't exactly parked up, but I was trying my level best not to respond. So, to clarify, here's Nigel Williams. My pod question relates to the unsolicited auditing, in inverted commas, of private business by feckless no-hopers. Will drone licensing for drones 75 grams and up become the means of ending the grievance mongering for profit on social media? Good question. They want their Arsenal. I think that's arse kicking. One day they'll upset the wrong people, and that will be that. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Dan Cullen is back to the grind. No, we're not doing tractor pulling. That, even for us, even though we are very flexible around these parts, that's probably a bit on the outskirts for us. Jim Turner says, when Kubota start making proper size tractors, they were great, simple machines without loads of technology and electrical things. And there we are with an electric machine. Is that a backward step? I honestly don't know. Kubota apparently do a 200 horsepower tractor. That's a proper job. Nigel Williams is, when I can get it to play, there we are. Like that Kubota. Dan Cullen says it's hot as well. Mick Norton, the biggest myth in the construction sector is that working at heights doesn't apply below 1.2 meters. Okay. I was thinking about this, Mick, and maybe you and I should have a chat at some point. I was actually thinking the other day about, and the only thing that stopped me writing it is that I can't think of the right device via which to start it. But imagine if you could transport a demolition person from, let's say 1973, because it's a nice round 50 years, 74 rather, a nice round 50 years. Go back in time, grab ourselves a demolition man, transport him to the present day, and show him what the demolition industry looks like. And imagine sitting him down and saying, yes, you're a demolition man where you come from, but you are not allowed on a demolition site, certainly not wearing a flat cap and a donkey jacket and your normal Sunday shoes. You've got to go through a card system. To get a card, you need to go through a training process. And to go through a training process, you have to sit an exam and all of these things. And one of the key focuses of all of that training is going to be the danger of working at height. At which point he may well mention to you the fact that back in the day, we used to have a rank within Demolition called the top man. We still have that rank of top man, you might tell him. And he says, oh, I'm glad to see that survived. But given all the training, given all the PPE, given the competence cards, I take it people don't actually die on demolition sites any longer. Or they do, you'd have to tell him, yes, they do. What is the biggest killer? Funny you should say that. Falls from height. Yes. Progress, they call it. Myths for me is that a plastic card equals competence and a lack of card equals no skills. Nigel Williams, I salute you, sir. You're absolutely right. A myth indeed. Has anyone heard from Peter McKenna? He was on the WhatsApp group yesterday, still suffering health-wise, but he is going to be back at some point. Question of the day, says Daniel Man. They're saying President Kennedy assassination was government plot as he was against a lot of things. Yeah. And the funny thing with that, I tend, when you hear about things like alien species being amongst us, it normally comes from certifiable lunatics. Like, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Is he a David? Oh, the guy that used to be a goalkeeper. Doesn't matter, but they tend to come from outliers in the world. What is weird is when it comes to the Kennedy assassination, certain people that I actually respect, like Oliver Stone, the film director, like Michael Moore, also a film director, like Rob Reiner, again a film director, all believe there was more to it than meets the eye. I was thinking the same. Hopefully he'll let us know how he is if he's able. He's up and about, but he's poorly. Nick Norton says owning and using a drone in the UK is perfectly legal, but you must abide by the Civil Aviation Authority CAA guidance. Yes, you must indeed. Now, I did say, now let me just check our timing. Where are we? I've got 10 minutes until our friends over on Instagram leave us. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. Let me throw it up on the screen. I had a press release come through this morning, which is from a company called Know It. Don't know It, but they've sent us a press release. And it says, in a year in which insolvency levels across the industry occurred at the fastest rate in a decade, urgent action is required to safeguard the future of the construction industry. Founder and CEO of Know It, Lynn Darcy Quigley, comments, business is tough for everyone right now, and the last thing business leaders need is additional pressure placed upon their the health of their cash flow. The construction industry is an integral cog within our economy, and if figures continue to read so poorly, then we are running the risk of causing irreversible damage to the sector. At the moment, the overwhelming majority, that's 69% of construction contractors, are waiting up to 60 days to be paid. 60 days is ambitious, I think, but to be paid for following an invoice being issued. To compound this further, 42% of contractors said that they experience clients requesting discount rates on services once a project is underway. And this is the final part. There seems to be a lack of consideration from most construction clients that these actions, when it comes to late payments or demanding cut price costs, have knock-on effects to the industry as a whole. An industry which is regularly operating up to 2 months without being paid and constantly pressured into providing unsustainably low-cost services is going to end up in a rising number of contractors closing down for good. All of which I think makes for very interesting reading. But let me just round all of that up very, very quickly. We've got construction and demolition clients and tier one contractors choosing the lowest bidder. They are then demanding discounts even after the contract has been awarded and agreed, and then they're sitting on the money in the form of retentions. So my question or questions are this. Are all these practices being used because that's how it's always been done? Are they being used out of sheer devilment and a desire to make the supply chain squirm a bit? Or, and this is my guess, are they doing it because it's the only way that they themselves can afford to stay in business? Love to get your thoughts. As I say, we're on the countdown with our friends over on Instagram. The Instagram stream cuts out an hour. Let's have a look. Let me take that off the screen because that's just confusing things. Nigel Williams says, why can't Facebook continue to play lives if you shut the app like TikTok? Keep dipping out to use tally counter app. David Icke is the guy that believes Terry Wogan is a lizard or something. I can never remember. Just going back to conspiracy theories, the world is flat. Yes, one of my particular favourites, that. If anybody's ever flown at any serious altitude and seen the curvature of the Earth, you'll know that that's a complete nonsense. Some companies take 90 days. This is unbelievable, the way they're treating submissions. You're absolutely right. And as I say, I'm just going to reiterate exactly the point I'm trying to make here. Up front, and that they will tell you otherwise, but tier one contractors and major clients will let work based purely on the lowest bid. They will go with the lowest bid 99 times out of 100. Having awarded that contract and having agreed the terms and conditions and the cost, they will then demand some kind of discount. And then when all is said and done, they will use retentions to sit on the money for as long as they possibly can. And I've mentioned this in terms of demolition in the past when it comes to retentions. How can you possibly have a retention in demolition? If you're a demolition contractor, you are paid to put a thing on the floor to make a building or a bridge or a structure vanish. Once it's vanished, it's not going to sprout back up again. Once you've taken down a tower block, you can say to your client, there you are, you wanted it gone, it's gone. Could I have my money, please? At which point, 9 times out of 10, they will say, retentions, we need to check a few things. 'Tis bollocks, I tells you. I think it's down to interest rates to rise, and then they pay, I believe. The absolute truth is they're sitting on the money for as long as they possibly can because it does good for their own personal cash flow, does well for their own incomes and profitabilities and everything else. But why? And bearing in mind the domino effect that this has. If you've got a client at the very, very upper echelons, one of the major property developers in the UK who is using these sort of practices, choosing the lowest bidder, demanding some kind of discount, and then sitting on the money. What happens to the main contractor that they're dealing with? Well, the main contractor is suffering, and therefore they pass that down to their subcontractors, and the subcontractors pass it down to their subcontractors, and you have this trickle effect. So somebody being a complete arsehole at the very top of the supply chain means that somebody who is basically one man in a van, possibly with a paintbrush, is now forced to wait 3 months to get money, even though he's done the job properly and to everybody's satisfaction. It is an absolute disgrace. 5 minutes left on Instagram. I will count it down when we get there. But yeah, absolute disgrace. And I realize these things tend to come to light at this when the industry is struggling, but this goes on all the time. It becomes harder, I think. It becomes harder when times are hard and you have got subcontractors who are struggling. But we lost another major house builder yesterday that went into administration, the name of which has completely gone out of my head. If anybody can help me with that, I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, we are losing companies. And why are we losing companies? Because they're not getting paid. Chris Ford says getting paid has always been the hardest part of the job. Don't get me wrong, there are some brilliant companies out there. Most will pay as soon as they are able in a structured fashion, but as work becomes less and prices squeezed, payment times rise. Which leads me on. You know that we've worked with the fine folks over at Despe in Italy, one of the world's best demolition contractors, and I'm saying that hand on heart. I believe them to be that. But in addition to working with them, we also did some work for them. We produced a video for them on their top-down waste system. I scripted it. We got a voiceover artist to do the voiceover. My son Fred put the thing together, and we delivered it. We delivered it the day before Christmas Eve. And on Christmas Eve, I received an email saying that they had approved it. They loved it. Can we raise an invoice? And I thought, well, I will, purely so I don't forget it. But I raised an invoice on the 24th of December. So just as everybody was about to go into their festive break, on the 29th of December, before, well, 5 days later, paid in full. Paid in full. As a result, would I work for Desplay again? In a heartbeat. Wouldn't have a moment's hesitation, because, I mean, I know them. I know them to be good people. I know them to be nice people to deal with, but they're also honourable people to deal with. Why don't we have a few more of those in the industry? That's what I'd like to know. We are now down to a couple of minutes, so I'm going to say a very quick goodbye to everybody over on Instagram. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We will be back again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Whether you like it or not. If you have got any questions, please let me know. You can DM me over on Instagram. As I say, we've got, I mean, I can tell you, we've got, blimey, I reckon 1,000 people have gone through the live stream over on Instagram. There are many hundred over there. I only had a few comments, but I've tried my best to respond to those. But if you can comment, please do so. And I'd love to see you here again. And let us know where in the world you are. I'd love to hear from that as well. That pretty much brings us to an end. It brings us to an end, certainly over on Instagram. It's going to bring us to an end over on here as well. So I tell you what, if I wrap up everything at the same time, that will work for everybody, won't it? I'll be back here again tomorrow at 10 a.m. as per usual for the Breakfast Show. I was going to say, we've got Allman Landscape LLC. Hello from the States in Ohio. Good morning. It is morning where you are. Good morning. Thank you very much. Ohio, another of the states that I haven't yet ticked off. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and thank you for letting us know where in the world you are. Hopefully you'll be back here tomorrow, and I can say hello to you in full then. Right, that pretty much wraps us up. I'm going to call it a day. Everybody, go and have a good day. If it's cold where you are, wrap up, stay safe. See you tomorrow.